Experience mind-blowing love with a man or woman, do this. And I'm really excited to have today's guest, Jason Gaddis, founder of Relationship School, where he helps men and women navigate healthy relationships. So let me start with welcome, Jason.
Thanks, Jonathan. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So the title is called Experience Mind-Blowing Love. And because my audience is predominantly women, we called it Mind-Blowing Love with Men. But this isn't really just about men, or this is about men and women in creating healthy relationships. And rather than giving tips and advice, I just wanted this to be about two guys talking about love and relationships. And I know you're in a fantastic relationship. You're married. You're very happy. You've got several children. I'm a guy who's been around the block a few times, divorced, had a couple of relationships. So for those watching, there's going to be a little bit of contrast. So I want to start, Jason, with something I see sorely lacking in dating and relationships today, and that's presence and intention. So I'd like to start there if you're cool with that.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, that's a big one.
So from your vantage point, I mean, let's just start with what that means to be present and then to be intentional.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are different, intentional and presence. If I have the intention to be a good man or a good partner, then I want to have actions, obviously, that follow that, I think.
Yeah.
And presence to me is, it's hard to pin down, but it's that when I'm just in the moment with my wife or children, and I'm there and I'm not looking at my phone and I'm not distracted by the news and all the things that I've got to do.
Yeah.
And it's when my marriage, honestly, it's when my marriage is going the best, it's because I'm the most present. When it's going the worst, it's because I'm not present. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah. And I would think, if we think of Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, is whether your brain is in the future or in the past, you're not being present to what's happening in this moment. Right. And yet, how can you be an active listener in a relationship if you're not present, right?
I know. How many of us are, we're in a fight or we're just walking in after work and our partner is giving us their download of the day and we're just sort of spacing out. We're not really there, and sometimes to me, it's up to both people to recognize that. It's not up to one person. It's like, I want to know that I have my wife's attention when I'm sharing important things to her. Yeah. And if I sense she's spacing out or not here, I'm going to say something. So that's something we can do in our partnerships to cultivate presence. We can be like, hey, can we set the phones down? Can we look in each other's eyes? Can we have each other's full attention? And then we don't, the talker, because some of us like to talk and we lose our audience and they keep talking. I'm like, well, you lost your audience, but you keep talking. That's more about you actually at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You said something that made me think of when we think of presence, and I said intentionality, right? It takes a level of intention to be present, in the moment. And the reason why I wanted to talk about intentionality, particularly in dating and in the early stages of relationships, centered around what's the purpose of this relationship? Why are we doing this?
Such an important question.
And yet, I will tell you from the dating vantage point, it hardly ever gets discussed, or at least I'll say in the 3D world. I mean, you and I kind of live in a 4 or 5D world, so it's a little bit different. But from a 3D vantage point, I just see people are just unconscious to that. They're almost ambivalent to it. Yeah. And I wondered if you had some thoughts on that.
I think you're right. And I don't think people are kind of claiming what they want with a relationship. Like, what is this for? My wife and I talk a lot about this, that because we both work with couples and we see couples that are in a challenging spot and they've never really asked this question. Why are we even here? And they can't answer the question. They go back to their vows. They're like, well, I don't know. What did our vows say? And it's like, it's not in your vows. This is about, we believe we're together because we can do more together than we can alone. We must believe in something about that, about partnership and about sharing power, sharing leadership, sharing our life together. Like, what is that makes us choose and be willing to stay in it when it's hard? So I think you're spot on. I think more people should ask the kind of why question, like why are we even together and what is this for?
Yeah. As you're sharing that, it occurs to me in the past, relationships were very dependent oriented. There was a need for, and particularly, I mean, in most cases for women, they needed the man for that support, that provider protector narrative. And certainly, and I think thankfully, we're not in that particular dynamic anymore. So this question of what's the purpose of this experience between us, other than, I'll share with you, it looks like to me, dating can be mostly about attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection without any much depth beyond that.
What a bummer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's sad. And that is where some people are choosing to play the game.
Yeah.
But I think back to your point about intention, I think if people listening have an intention to go deep and to have a deep, fulfilling, exploratory, adventurous relationship, I think they're going to weed out a lot of people in the dating experience, right? Because they're not going to get the depth. And then it's like, move on. Like if all you're talking about is sports and the weather and your job, there's way more on the menu than that, as you know.
Yeah, it's funny. My dating profile, if it takes you 3.5 minutes to read it.
Okay.
And I've had some people say, well, that's just overwhelming. And I'm like, if my life can be summed up in 3 minutes, that's a big problem.
Right.
Like there is so much more to the artichoke here. You have to peel a lot of layers. So when someone comes to you from your practice, is it couples? Is it individuals? Like what, and what's the reason why they come to you?
I mean, pain usually, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Occasionally that's the biggest motivator in change, it seems like, for people, particularly men, and men have, waited way too long usually.
Yeah.
Like they're hobbling in with a broken leg, right? Instead of like years before it got broken.
Yeah.
And so pain is the big one. Occasionally you get people that are like, hey, we're good, we want to be great. And they're just proactive. But that's less common. I don't know if that's your experience, but that's mine.
Well, I know of couples. I mean, I'm blessed within a circle of friends and couples that I've already established a very solid foundation with good communication skills and such. So yeah, they want to elevate their relationship, as you said, to go to a deeper level of love. And so people come to you in pain. And you mentioned men. I'm curious, like, are you seeing a rise in that? In other words, and again, I speak to a female audience predominantly, but the fact that you have men coming to you, are they openly sharing where their pain lies in the relationship?
Well, I mean, years ago, I tried to market directly to men, and it was hard. Okay. And so I learned that business didn't do very well. Although I think more and more men are into personal growth and therapy and coaching and self-reflection. But I often, to a man who's a little resistant and guarded about the work, usually it's his partner bringing him in, and he's willing because he loves her and doesn't want to lose her.
Yes.
And then I can do my thing. So I'm fine with that. It's like, dude, however you get here, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But he comes with a little bit of arms folded skepticism. And what the hell is this? And are you guys going to gang up on me and all that?
Well, I'm curious, I suspect you have the capacity to build trust pretty quickly with someone. I mean, just because of your presence, your intentionality and such. And I would think, while there might be the arms closed to start with, as you begin to share from that heart center place, I mean, I suspect you're seeing men open up, and actually, to some degree, even the floodgates come out.
Yeah, for sure. Depending on the man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can disarm a guy because I'm usually make fun of myself. I talk about my own story because that can be useful for him. My own problems still. That men like a man who's not talking down from the mountaintop and you're wrong and I'm the sage over here. So I try to do a good job of building rapport, right? And some men will crack open and it's like the best thing that's ever happened to them, and it becomes an amazing vehicle for personal growth, is his relationship with his family or his partner. Other men, they can stay on lockdown and they just want to, hey, can we just get back to a good place and stop talking about this so much? And didn't we already, why are we repeating the same conversation? I thought that was done. And those men are a little tougher, right?
Yeah. Well, but I would agree with, when a man cares for his partner, he's going to take that extra step, even if that's not his jam, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because just really quickly, I have a client and I did some couples work with them, and he's like a special forces combat warrior type. I mean, the stoic, looks like a Marlboro Man kind of guy. But you shared something, and I want everyone I'm now talking to the audience for a second. I want everyone to hear this. When a man shares from that vulnerable place like you did, and even maybe a little self-deprecating or a little bit from a humorous standpoint, but to share, hey, look, here's me being vulnerable. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be transparent with you. I think once a man witnesses that in that safe container, that door begins to open.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Also, I like to enroll guys through their values. So let's say you have an entrepreneur who's a high achiever. I say things like, look, man, you know how to put in the work. You've built a business that's working, and you'll stay up late, you'll get up early, you'll read books, you'll listen to podcasts, you'll learn. All you have to do is apply that same mentality and mindset over here in your relationship. Is there any reason you're not doing that? Because right now you're communicating that your business is more important than your relationship. Yeah. And how do you think that feels to her? And then he's like, ooh, yeah. And I can do the same thing with working out or whatever. He goes to the gym a lot. It's like, yeah, you're willing to do the reps over there, but not here. Like, how's that different?
Oh my gosh. You're reminding me of this Instagram reel I saw where this couple is in a therapist's office and the wife is sharing and he doesn't get it. So then the therapist gives it in a golf analogy.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, that's like it's about 4 putting on when you land on the green and 2 on a par 5. And like, she's like, that's how, and he's like, that's how you feel. Like he could get it. He could empathize with that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So since it's usually women not dragging their men in, so to speak, but there's that encouragement, like, and since my audience is women, what would you say to the women watching to help facilitate that, invitation? Like, what can a woman do without creating that, shrugged shoulders like a no? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. I have a lot of thoughts on that. Well, first, you got to realize that if you say nothing, he's like, nothing's going to change. So you got to speak up. And the wrong thing women do, the thing that I don't recommend, is you kind of get demanding and needy and clingy, and you're like, hey, and you start to get really agitated and angry, and you start to threaten him. If you don't go to therapy, I'm leaving. And that's just not going to, he already is one down, because he doesn't know relationship stuff. He's not open to therapy. So he already feels ashamed and insecure, even though he doesn't know how to talk about it. Yeah. So you might think about, again, enrolling him through his values and through a number of ways. So one approach we can take, and first of all, I just want to also acknowledge that for a lot of women, they're tired of leading the relationship conversation. So I just want to say, I hear you, and that makes sense, because you often are doing that. And one thing I could say to that is, you got to remember, this man grew up as a boy, and he was socialized and trained and conditioned to prioritize himself and compete with everybody, and not to prioritize relationships. He was taught to prioritize himself. So now he's an adult man. So he's up against his own conditioning. It's not even about you. And so if you can find your way in and say things like that to him, hey, look, I know you're not a feeler. I know you're not, this stuff doesn't come natural to you. But I fell in love with you for a reason. And I know that man is that beast of a man, that awesome man is in there, but I feel a big wall, and I'm feeling pushed out. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling very alone over here. So you would share the impact of his way of being on you. I'm sad. I feel alone. I feel kind of by myself over here. And you can actually have tears coming down your face, or you genuinely mean it. That's going to get a man's attention more than you language. You need to
Yeah.
change. You need
Yeah.
to go to therapy. You need to hire Jonathan. You need, that's not gonna, it's just not gonna go very well. And then finally, I just say enrolling him through his values. So, hey, let's say work is his highest priority in life next to maybe you or the family.
Yeah.
It's like trying to help him see that, look, if you learn a little bit about communication with me, because I think we're a little stuck, this is going to help you get paid more. This is going to help you influence more people at your job that you love or whatever. Like it's going to you have to see, honey, how it's going to benefit your life. It's not just for me. It's fine if you come in for me for a couple sessions, but eventually you actually have to get behind this and see how it's going to help you with all the things you care about. Will you do this for us? You might get better traction that way.
Well, I'm a big fan of nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Yep. I'm sure you're very familiar with it. And that capacity to communicate, not from that accusatory way that you were sharing earlier or that demanding way, but from a place of, kind of identifying what our needs are, for ourselves. And I'm curious because I believe one of the challenges a lot of couples have or individuals have is really even just identifying what their own needs are, kind of like what we were talking about, like what's the purpose of the relationship, but what is the need that needs addressing from that emotional vantage point?
Yeah. And I have a whole thing on needs, by the way, and I'll just give it to you real quick. So because some women will come in with a laundry list of needs because they've read Marshall Rosenberg or because they've read something online about own your needs and there's like 50 needs. It's like, no, you have four needs is all you have. Okay. Just 4. And they all start with an S.
Okay.
Safe, seen, soothed, supported, and challenged. So you need to feel emotionally safe. In other words, safe enough in the relationship where you can express your emotions, which is going to be hard for some guys. You need to feel seen for who you are and accepted for who you are, who you really are, right? And like he knows you. You don't want to always go to your girlfriends and feel like, gosh, this guy doesn't even know who I am. That's so sad. That is not a good relationship. So you want to feel seen. The third one is soothed, meaning you two are inevitably going to have conflict. You need to feel soothed, and he needs to feel soothed after conflict, which just means you need to both repair really well. Yeah. And then the final one is support. I put support and I add challenge on there because it's support, which is like, I believe in you. And then challenge is like, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to give you honest feedback. And I want you to give me honest feedback about how we can be better people and better in our relationship. So, because a relationship with support and no challenge is kind of a dead relationship, and a relationship with too much challenge and no support is like abusive.
Yeah.
So the 4 S's, and I got these mostly from Dan Siegel, who studies attachment stuff and attachment science, teaches it. And I think these are really useful. Almost everybody's needs, all the Marshall Rosenberg needs, can be fit into those 4.
Okay. And it's true for men and women alike. It's not singular to women.
And we need to give that which we want to receive. So I need to be behaving in a way that has him feel safe, seen, soothed, supported, and challenged.
Yeah. And it's interesting because a significant percent of my audience, because I work in midlife, that after baby making years before retirement, roughly 75% in that marketplace, if you will, are divorced people. Mm-hmm. And divorce is a really can be a very traumatic experience, and just unraveling your tapestry with your life with another person and trying to find your own identity back. And a lot of people just simply hop into a new relationship. But I would say that the one thing I've seen significantly, how men feel, is I don't think they feel safe anymore, like they might have in the past. And I don't mean from the physical world, like, crossing the street, that sort of thing, but emotionally safe. And I think coming back to what you said before, that's where that arms cross comes in. Yeah. We're not feeling safe. So I love your 4 S's, by the way, or the ones you glean from others.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm with you. I think a lot of men, unfortunately, don't feel emotionally safe. Even if they did, they still wouldn't know what to do. but they often end up feeling judged and criticized and like they're not enough or not doing enough in the relationship. And so a woman has to be like, okay, that's one of his core triggers, like core wounds. And it's often comes from way before when you two met. It's like, has nothing to do with you, but it is something to work with. And in a conscious relationship where the guy's awake and paying attention, you should be able to talk about that. Like, oh, did I trigger that wound again where you feel like you're never enough and not doing it right? Yeah, honey, you did that. It sucks, but it's okay. I love you. You know, we can work through this.
Yeah.
But a new guy that's like newer on the path and less aware, less self-aware, he's even guarded around being guarded.
I'm sorry, that was funny.
Yeah.
Well, I would venture to say, and I've noticed a significant shift in the introduction of personal development, self-help, spiritual work, and even therapy for both men and women alike. And I'm grateful to witness that because I'm a tail end baby boomer. I suspect you're a Gen Xer, right?
Yeah, Gen X.
You know? Yeah, I mean, and I grew up with the parents from the silent generation, you know, and you know, from that vantage point, they were silent about everything.
Totally.
We weren't modeled really good, you know, effective communication skills because relationships were dependent oriented. I'm bringing this up because women oftentimes feel like they're alone in this, and you've just described how men are being more open with you. They're sharing their pain. They're actually opening up. You're seeing this evidence.
Yeah.
And I'm witnessing it more and more each day. And I'm only just simply wanted your perception on it's not as bad as you think out there in the sense of men actually wanting to do inner work.
Yeah. I've got a couple of things to say there. I'm with you. It's not as bad as women or people say it is. Now, the loudest men right now are getting a lot of attention who are not that relational and who are not that sensitive of the impact of their behavior and their choices, which sucks because it's not a really relational kind of man.
Yeah.
And women in their homes want to be with relational men who actually pay attention to them and care about their feelings and are interested in learning about how to work through conflict. And those guys are more and more on the move. And the evidence I have of that, this isn't just like my opinion, is I was just recently at a men's summit in person called the Big Tent Summit. And it was a bunch of organizations trying to help men just wake up and grow and develop themselves. And they're all committed to that one thing. Yeah. And these organizations have seen substantial growth over the last 10 years. Men's work is what a lot of people call it. Yeah. Has gotten a little more attractive when you have people like Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer, talking about going to therapy. That's permission. When you talk about Tim Ferriss talking about doing therapy, that's permission. Yeah. When anyone famous is like, I go to therapy, young men are like, oh, it's okay to go to therapy. Yeah. You know, so I do think that is happening more.
Yeah. Oh, I'm blasting on my YouTube channel how much, I mean, all the different modalities of work I've done, and I have no reservation about being authentic in that area, merely just to be, to some degree, I don't want to say a role model, but just from the vantage point of you're talking about is, well, if this person's doing it, maybe I should consider it too, kind of, and what that would imply. And I do recognize that I think it's beyond men need this. I'm going to say we all need it. Okay.
Yeah, we all need it.
But only particularly because the way we boys were raised in this vantage point is that we weren't just allowed to really express our emotions. And sadly, we can be combative and competitive with one another, which I'm not a fan of that anymore, unless I'm playing poker with the guys.
Right. There's a place for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. In just those venues. So I want to shift gears for a second. I mean, it's the same line of conversation. So can you recall when you first met your wife, or I'm going to ask this, and it's not exactly right, but did she vet you for your emotional maturity? Did you guys talk about the work because I'm assuming you did plenty of work before you met your wife. So you showed up so different back then. But did that conversation even come up in the early stages?
Well, it's a good question because we met in grad school and we were to study psychology. So I was already vetted by the fact that I was at this little Buddhist institution studying psychology. I had to be that, like, a guy that was at least mildly interested in meditation and therapy, and because I was studying to become a therapist. So we met in the hallway in graduate school. So we were both, I was looking for a woman who was open to personal growth. I had not dated anyone like that prior. She had a little bit. And I was coming off the heels of 10 years of being an emotionally constipated guy and totally pushing women away. So I was ready finally to meet a conscious woman who was on the path, and the path of personal growth and spirituality and all that. And so that part was somewhat straightforward for us because of the container of graduate school, right? It's almost like when you meet someone at a yoga studio or a personal growth workshop or a Tony Robbins workshop, your chances are they're going to be open to personal growth.
Yeah.
Chances are very high, right? So I always tell women, go to those places.
Yeah. Well, and to piggyback on that, and by the way, I'm in full agreement, go to where those places are. They're more apt to be that way. And one of the things I always encourage in my videos is ask those questions. You don't have to wait till the 10th date to start poking around. You could do it on the very first conversation on the telephone, quite frankly.
Jonathan, what do you ask? Like, what do you recommend? Like, how many dates in, and what kind of questions do you recommend asking?
Well, first, I think it's important to know thyself, like know who you are, because without that, and I mean, know your attachment style, know your triggers, know your fears and insecurities, at least have some level of awareness around that, preferably from a place of objectivity. But I mean, from my vantage point, it's one of the first questions I ask when I'm on the phone with someone is, are you familiar with personal development, self-help, and spiritual work or therapy? And if yes, like, where are you on this timeline? Or, I don't say it exactly like that. And like, is this something active in your life? Because somebody could say, oh yeah, I went to marriage counseling. And they might have went for like a few weeks, before the divorce was finalized.
10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, at least for myself, and only because this is my jam. Like, for me, this is where I love to live from a place of curiosity. So I ask that point blank question. I ask about your past relationship, and I dig, like, I'm drilling down. And I know it's not considered attractive and might even seem like an interview, but Jason, I'll be candid with you. And I say this jokingly, but dating is an interrogation process. Now, let me say what that means. The idea of interrogation is simply to get to the truth. That's all. That's the purpose of an interrogation, is like, did you commit the crime or not?
Yeah.
So I say it jokingly, but the idea, honestly, if I could teach everyone interrogation skills, because if you ever watched a crime, like a real, like, there's YouTube videos on it. These people are brilliant of weaving the questions in such a way that by the end, people are like confessing, their greatest sins, because these are masters at asking deeper questions and drilling down. Like, I've been really fascinated with even encouraging sales techniques as a opening to dating.
It's an enrollment conversation.
You're
enrolling the person into a relationship with you, why not? Yeah. And you got to be smart about it. Like, you do it through their values also. But I love everything you're saying. I'm with you. Especially if you're over 40, it's like, stop wasting everybody's time and get right to your values, who you are, what you actually care about. One of my favorite dating questions I tell people is, ask them about their past relationships. What happened? You're divorced? What happened?
Yeah.
And notice, you'll get all the information you need in terms of how they talk about it. If they say, oh, he was a complete asshole and she did all this and it was all her fault, that's what you're going to get in 5 years when the relationship gets stressful. You're going to be on the receiving end of their blame.
Yeah. Oh,
if they can't take any responsibility, like, well, I was kind of a jerk. I don't know. I was pretty self-absorbed. And if they can't own something about their past divorce or past relationship, that's a huge red flag.
Oh, I can't even emphasize this enough. It's funny. Can I tell you a personal story really quickly? This happened about 6-8 years ago. I was on a date with a woman. I'm like, oh, what happened in your marriage? And she goes, I was with a narcissist. And I'm like, okay. And like, what happened with the last guy you were with? He was a narcissist. And what about the guy before that? And like, she rattled off like 5 men. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not a narcissist, so I'll be her hero. And I do this for a living. Yeah. And I still miss that clue because we only dated for 6 weeks. And can you guess what the Facebook post said the next day?
I dated a narcissist.
Another narcissist. And I'm like, boy, did I really need the 2x4 to learn that one? And it's so hard because, and I'm speaking for everyone right now, because there can be so many other good qualities within a person and such that you could admire or appreciate beyond that physical attractiveness. But this is such an important question, I think, is that even if you take 3% ownership of the demise of the relationship, something that at least, and I think you'd agree, it demonstrates a level of self-awareness that hopefully you can build upon from that vantage point.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just think how people talk about themselves, their family, their exes, speaks volumes about everything. And if like I always say to women in particular who they're 5-10 years into a relationship and they're with like a stubborn asshole who's not a narcissist, he's just self-absorbed, he's shut down emotionally, he won't learn, he's just kind of like, just kind of dense. I'm like, you missed the cues. That's on you. Like, you can sit and blame him all you want, but you believe the smoke and mirrors. Like, you didn't do a proper vetting process.
Yeah. Oh, well, I use the word vetting in almost every video. Like, dating is a vetting process.
It's vetting.
To decide if this is a person you want to invest in and want to explore a relationship. In fact, it saddens me. Very few, or at least, again, it's the lens I see because the world I'm in, so I can't speak in its entirety. But, I don't see people or couples saying, I want to explore a relationship with you. It's like, it's almost as if that word is like, well, we'll just spend time together, but let's keep silent to the word relationship.
Yeah.
And the purpose of it. and then they find themselves 5 years in going like, I've already got all this sunk cost in. And okay, so when people come to you, when couples come to you, not that I've gone through your work, so I only say it from this viewpoint, is they're coming to heal. They're coming to resurrect. They're coming to have this mind-blowing, loving experience. I mean, is that
yeah, again, there's a whole range, right?
Yeah.
Some people are on that continuum. Those are the favorite kind of people to work with because they're like, okay, let's grow, let's change. Yeah. Jason, tell us how to do this. I'm like, wow, I'm in business.
Yeah.
And then there's people who are kicking their tires when they come in. They're just coming in thinking they don't know how to use therapy or coaching, and they don't know how to be a great client.
Yeah.
And because they don't know that, they just come in their pattern, wanting to blame their partner and change their partner, and thinking that's the solution to get what they want. And I'm just like, I just cut that down pretty quick.
Yeah.
I say, look, after a few sessions of that, I said, look, it doesn't seem like you guys want to change for yourselves. You want to change your person you want the outside to change so that you can feel better. That's not going to work here. So we're not a good fit. I don't want to take your money, and if that's how we're going to play the game here, because that's not.
So you're very direct that way. You're I don't want to take on okay. Well, I have a great deal of respect for that because, but then where do they go? Like, what's their best avenue? You don't care.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Because that type of couple is not going to get to the next place.
Yeah.
Right. They need to hear from someone directly. Like, look, here's an honest assessment. You guys kind of suck because of the way you talk to each other, the way you treat each other is terrible.
Yeah.
And if you want to change this, I have a whole roadmap for you. I've got a way, a method, an approach. I got all kinds of resources, but neither of you are actually curious about that. And so we're not a good fit. Like when you decide to be curious and interested in your own development, let me know. I am here for you. I'm in your corner.
Yeah. I'm curious, I believe the Gottmans can predict with like 95% accuracy, and that may not be the exact number, but literally 15 minutes talking with a couple and literally predict their success rate.
Yeah, it's less than 5 minutes actually of a conversation.
Really?
Yeah.
And well, I was going to throw that back at you. Is that the experience you tend to have?
Yeah, my wife and I talk about this a lot. Within 5 minutes, we know I can assess a couple in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I can be with a couple at the farmer's market or at a friend's party, and within minutes, I know exactly the kind of relationship they're in and how it's going to not work, basically.
I'm curious, are you a people watcher in that case?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I love analyzing, watching, observing humans. It's like my favorite thing on the planet to do.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing only because you and I are mirrors right now. Because
you like that too, right?
Huh?
You like it too, right?
Oh my! I'm a junkie for it. Like, I mean, it's almost my kink, if you will. And I mean, not to cross a boundary, but it's like, I'll be candid with you. I think human behavior is absolutely fascinating.
It's stunning. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
And not to say it in a derogatory or demeaning way. I mean, I sometimes, and because I laugh at my own, I'm going to call it stupidity, and I'm not, undermining my self-worth when I say that, but my behavior, like I laugh at it. So then I kind of tend to do it for other people, not from a judgmental way, but like, God, we humans are so ineffective in human pair bonding.
We are. Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm with you. I try not to go to a self-righteous place with my assessments.
Yeah.
Because I try to tell people, look, I have the same exact problems as you. Yeah. The only difference is I'm studying this stuff. And so don't you think I should be a little better at this?
Yeah.
A little better at communication under stress, a little better at repair, a little better like creating an awesome marriage, because I've been doing it for 20 years. The standard is higher for me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I'm better than you. I have the same exact problems, like money problems, sex problems, like you name it, problems. And it's all about how we handle it. And what's most fascinating is how many people are asleep to engaging in their own journey.
Yeah.
Right. That's what's sad to me is like everybody's like walking around kind of like not seeing that the answer is right here, just to like, all I need to do is look in the mirror and take responsibility that, oh, maybe my life isn't working because of me.
Yeah. Oh, I can say this from a personal experience because in 2005, I went 20 years ago now. It's funny now to think about it. It's almost a quarter of my life. Or no, a third of my life, excuse me. I'm not 80. Is that I went through a divorce, lost my high-end corporate job, and got wiped out in the market crash a few years later.
Wow.
And my identity was pummeled. Absolutely pummeled.
Yeah.
And I was in the pit of despair for almost a half a decade. And it was actually the movie The Secret that reminded me of I learned about metaphysics a decade or two before, but I abandoned it to get married. And I don't want to blame her. It wasn't our path for her. And I kind of moved from that. But when I saw The Secret, I'm like, this resonates with me. And I'm like, and then it was another, whether it was this modality or the next one, these began being stepping stones for me. And I think I'm curious if I just observed that I think humans don't make a shift until they have a humbling event.
Yeah.
Or sometimes several.
I'm with you. That's why I said pain earlier is the reason people come in is like they get their ass beat to the point where they're like, okay, help. I need some help over here. And I'm the same way. I am a stubborn ass. Like I've had so many physical injuries. Let's just quick story here.
Yeah.
I was an athlete, a lot of physical injuries, back, knees, shoulder dislocations, you name it, neck injuries. Well, I put off like I'd go to physical therapist, I'd get surgery, I'd do the things, and the physical therapist say, okay, go home and do these exercises. I did nothing because I was so entitled and didn't think I needed to do anything until like age 45, when I was like, you know what? I can't get off the ground without like assistance. That's a problem. I don't want to be old. I want to be able to run with my kids. I want to run with my grandkids maybe one day.
Yeah.
I don't like how this feels. And so I got to work. And since about, I don't know, 4 years ago officially, I really went all in on physical therapy, movement properly, weight training, and it's changed my life. But it took me years to finally get on board, right? And a lot of pain and humbling experiences, as you say.
Yeah. By the way, really quick, by the way, thank you for that share. Really appreciate it. And by the way, it's it's interesting. Our body that example is a perfect example that we have an emotional side to us that's equally as important as our physical side, because quite frankly, our emotional side can absolutely directly affect our physical side. It's kind of where disease comes from. Really quickly, we've got a couple questions coming in. Nurse Kat says, and I'd like to direct this to you to see how you feel about this. Why is dating so hard in your 40s?
Well, there could be a number of things going on here. I'd have a lot of questions back at you, Nurse Kat. But if I just kind of just throw spaghetti at a wall here. Yeah. It could be you, right? It could be your cat are like, why do I make dating hard in my 40s? Might be an interesting question for you to sit with. And then I think it would be hard. I just want to validate you. If I was in my 40s dating today, I think it would be hard, given online dating apps and how people are dating and the amount of like noise and bullshit that you've got to sift through to get to a genuine person. Yeah, I think it would be hard. So I just want to say yes. Maybe it doesn't need to be as hard as you are making it if you ask different questions or take a different approach. I've heard some friends say, I'm not doing dating apps. I'm only doing word of mouth referrals from friends. Yeah. Or other people are saying no word of mouth referrals. I'm only doing dating apps, or whatever your thing is, right? Everybody's got their way, but I'm guessing there could be a little more creativity on your side. I'm not blaming you. I'm just challenging you lightly here.
Well, I think, and by the way, I love this question, and I really appreciate the empathetic way you approached it, and from the sense that, look, dating is hard. In fact, it sometimes sucks, and I'm in the marketplace, so I get it. I think I'm going to go back to the original conversation we had. I think intentionality is one of the big things that I noticed, that there's this ambivalence to, like, to go, is my strategy a short-term strategy or a long-term strategy? Am I in it for just the entertainment, physical connection, romance, attraction, or am I in it from the purpose of a relationship is for me to grow as an individual and to be a part of someone else's growth and to witness that. And I don't mean you have to go to therapy all day long for growth. Sure. But like that intentionality. And I think the way you answered it is looking within yourself, kind of what we talked about before. Am I as intentional as I claim to be for myself, and really sit with how you're approaching those initial conversations? Are we doing it I expect this person to show up this way, or am I showing up this way and I'm looking for my mirror?
Right. Yeah, that's good. I have one more thing to add based on your awesome reminder about intention for Nurse Cat here is, some people, I know for me, if I was dating and I approached it like I've approached money, sometimes it would be a nightmare, which is I focus on the external. I've got to get the thing over there. Then I'll feel okay. Like if you can cultivate a sense of, I feel just right as I am, and I'm going to go out and be myself, and I'm going to make this fun. I'm going to make this an adventure, and I'm going to just give, and I'm going to like show up for people, and I'm going to enjoy meeting people, not to get, But to give value and just be interested in humans, I think that it could flip the dynamic. Because I do think a lot of dating people get into the scarcity mindset of trying to get to feel okay.
Oh God. I mean, again, I've got video after video after video talking about that on my channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you bringing that up. And again, I want, part of the reason why I brought you on, Jason, I want my audience to see there are guys out there that think with a level of consciousness, with a level of presence, a level of intentionality. Yes, you and I swim in this realm, so it makes it a little bit easier for us. But these are important conversations to have. And I believe that to add one more thing is to operate from a place of curiosity. I see that Stacy posted the following. She said, humans are stubborn species. We all be in the joy, but stay curious, stay present, stay humble is the key. Play and have fun. But from that, I love being curious. I think the reason why you like to people watch is because there's this curiosity.
Totally.
By the way, the hardest part of that is you don't know, you don't get to go home with them to prove it, kind of
thing. Right.
Yeah,
that would be fun. I've often thought of making a movie about that.
Have you really? I think that would be a blast. Oh my God, that would be a great a rom-com. It'd be about people watching. And then maybe they have a drone.
And then you go home with them and you see what it's really like behind the scenes. I mean, you and I know that most people are wearing a mask out in the world. And even the people that you're like, oh, they have such a happy marriage. Maybe go home. If they can't talk about their pain and their struggles openly, they're not in a happy marriage. Happy marriage people, like people who are really fulfilled, are not afraid to say it's hard sometimes.
Yeah. There's a pretty famous divorce attorney, James Sexton, who's been on the YouTube scene quite a bit lately. And he said something that marriage is almost an inefficient technology. Those weren't his exact words, but and I think if we parse that down, what occurs to me is humans really aren't good at being relational.
Yeah. That's well said. Agreed.
Yeah. I think that's why we see a 50% divorce rate. And of those left, I bet half of those are miserable, kind of like what you even talked about, the projection of a happy marriage. And then second and third marriages end at a 65 to 75% rate. It's like, if you're always thinking the next person is going to be the improvement, it's time to look in the mirror and say, what can I do to cultivate, a happy life, whether I made it or not?
Yeah. That's really well said. I mean, people come to my courses and it's so refreshing when they do, because they're at that first divorce, second divorce, or whatever. And they're like, okay, my white flag is waving. I'm ready to learn. My cup is empty. Teach me how to do this differently. Show me how. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And they become different humans in 9 months, a year. And it's really inspiring to watch, because the brain is plastic. We can change, and it's way better in a relationship to change yourself than to ask your partner to change.
Yeah. Sunlight just said this, and I just wanted to share it with you. All men are the same. All women are the same. All humans are the same. Only the details are different. Like the thumbprints, probably. Something occurs to me. I think the evolution of relationships, and I think it's not going to affect your business, but I do feel like, since there is almost a relational drought or recession going on, if you will, I think it's a really big invitation to work on oneself. Like, while you're not in a relationship, to really, I think that's the invitation that's happening in our society today. Is like, okay, you could say dating is hard, which it is, but working on yourself can be fun, actually.
Yeah. Do you listen to Michael Mead at all?
No, I don't.
Michael Mead is this great mythopoetic kind of author, speaker guy, and he's got a great podcast. I can't remember the name.
I'm going to write that down. Michael Mead. Okay.
MEADE. Okay. And he says right now, more than ever, what we need to do is do our inner work to continue to live into our calling. Like, why are we on the planet? Is like, according to the myths that he studies and stuff, that's one of the greatest gifts we can give the world. And to kind of combat what's going on and all the craziness and division is we can be ourselves. We can go deeper into our own human journey. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. So I just wanted to flag that since you said it.
No, I appreciate it. I made a note. I'm going to check them out because that sounds like my jam. I think and again, I'm having this conversation just as like I said, kind of a backdrop to talk about the importance of doing personal development, self-help, spiritual work, and/or therapy. Again, it started for me watching the movie The Secret, and it evolved from there to, one podcast after another, then finally actually going to a workshop. You started in psychology school. You really started at a young age too.
I mean, young's relative, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I've got a few more years on you. So, okay, let's talk about your work. And I want to wrap up with this. So let's walk us through someone coming to you and please forgive everyone who I'm saying this to, that's worthy of working with you, because I think, again, if you're in that 3D closed-minded consciousness, that's not the client you're looking for, right?
Correct. Yeah. But if your husband is like that, I'll work with you.
Okay.
Because again, sometimes all it takes is a couple sessions of meeting together and, we can get somewhere. Before you throw in the towel, you might want to try seeing. I always tell people, look, don't go to any counselor. Don't just look up your insurance and just, Kaiser, okay, just throw a dart at the wall.
Yeah.
Most therapists suck, in my opinion. And I think you have to pay someone's fee, a higher fee. They have way more training. They can get to shit way faster. It's worth it to get a master to look at your relationship if you're really that serious about the work.
Yeah.
So I just want to, and that doesn't have to be me. I'm still on the journey. I'm learning a lot. Yes, I'm good at it, but there's hundreds of awesome people out there to work with to try to get you to a better place.
Yeah.
I coach people, individuals and couples. I train coaches. I've run a coaching training, a certification program for the last 14 years. Since 2016, 14 times. That's what I meant to say.
Okay. Got it.
2016. Anyway, that's another interesting place to plug in. We have lots of courses, free podcast. So.
Well, let me ask you something, because even just doing the work of your course, even if you don't choose to become, in the business, so to speak, or an entrepreneur, I suspect it has significant value just for your own journey. Would that be true to say?
Yeah. This was a bummer, but it's like a good news thing for me is all the people who've gone through my coaching certification program, which is 9 months and it's super intense.
Yeah.
It is not for everybody. It's a very intense course. Anyway, the biggest thing people come out with is personal, like, I am a different human. Yeah. And I feel so much better about myself. And that was not what I wanted them to say. I wanted them to say, your coaching training is awesome. And I learned how to be a great coach. And instead they were like, oh my God, I am such a different person. So that's why, and what people get out of it the most is, as you just said, it's their own empowerment.
Well, there's a, side effect to the work. And actually I suspect it's actually the real value is once you become more aligned for yourself, you become that opportunity to go down the coaching line, whether you choose to or not. I mean, it's a great side effect of the work that someone does with you. So, okay, I'm going to wrap up with that in mind. Folks, I'm going to post a link to connect with Jason at Relationship School, but can you, share just for the last minute, anything you'd like to say to everyone and how they can connect with you?
Yeah, sure. I just appreciate you, first of all, Jonathan, for being caring and giving out the free wisdom you give out to the world. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. And to the people listening, I just say, you're the greatest investment I think you can do in the world is in yourself. And that's going to raise your vibe to attract the kind of people you want in your life, whether it's a partner or friends, and to create the kind of partnership you want and family. And look, we're not taught this stuff in school. There was no download you got the download from the big people, and it usually was compromised.
Yeah.
So you've got to do something about that and learn. And anyone can learn. No one is faulty here. You're not broken. Everybody can learn how to communicate better, how to repair conflict better, how to stand up for themselves and use their voice and set boundaries better. All of us can learn that. Jonathan and I are living examples.
Yeah.
So I just encourage you to invest in yourself, please. Because that, I think, and then when you invest in yourself, you're going to be more relational just by proxy. And so I want to live in a more relational world personally, where we know how to work through conflict and division effectively. And that's the world I'm taking a stand for.
Well, ditto on that. And I want to just end by saying, you said something earlier about going deeper. I think to experience that mind-blowing love that the title represents is about going deeper, both within yourself, but within the person, so they can see those, you can have those 4 needs being met of seen, safe, soothed, and supported, and all that good stuff. Because I think couples, and I think you and your wife would be a great example of that, is you're living that embodiment of love. And that's all we really want at the end of the day. So, Jason, much appreciated. Thank you for being on. And anyone, if you want to connect again, I'm going to post a link to Relationship School. You can learn all about him. You can check him out on social media. You can plug his name and put it in Google. I'm encouraging you to do that because I think this is a great guy and I want everyone to follow him as well. So everyone, thanks so much. And again, thank you again, Jason.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye now. All right, everyone. Bye now.